Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Meet at Art History, where I'm sitting telling you some art history stories while meeting. And welcome to another video where, as by the name of the video, you can see that we are gonna be on Crete today. So last time we traveled to Greenland. Today we're going a little bit south, a little bit, specifically we are gonna talk. English about the Crete of Bronze Age. So we are getting back in time quite a bit also. It's a very huge topic on its own. I tried to narrow it down as much as possible again for this video, just for you out there to understand just the overall stuff, just the overall thing, what was going on, what influences they had and something like that. Few of the examples also, so I chose like 3 examples, but those 3 just also, I want to say that those are not just the only 3 examples that we have. There's plenty more that are preserved and have these wall paintings, but I just chose, well, Knossos. So we're going to be talking about the Palace of Knossos. It's like the most famous thing from this topic, and 2 little villas also. What else I wanted to say? Maybe, well, this video will get to some of you who are students, who are just like starting on art history or, I don't know, archaeology also, whatever. Well, basically, you are starting to study the art of ancient Greece. Feel free to email me for literature, because I will not share this literature in the description, because I don't really think it will be super ethical. I don't know, because this literature in the first place was shared with me through my studies. My teacher was, she shared this with us, with our group. So I think that that will be a little bit better like that. If you will write me, I will just create Google Disk and we will, share it among ourselves, student to student, and not put it publicly. Well, even though you can find it in public spaces, but still. And literature is like in English, not Ukrainian or anything, it's in English, so don't worry. So yeah, so if you will feel that you have a need of, well, some literature, because there's well, a lot of, starting with Cycladic art and ending with just, the overall books about like the art of ancient Greece. So yeah, some articles also, it's not just the books, and I have some articles there also and stuff like that. So again, feel free to write me on my emails in the description, and I will try to help you as much as I can. Without further ado, let's dive into our topic today. Before we will start specifically about Crete, I just wanted to say that like Bronze Age is a pretty, well, long period of time. Not so long as Stone Age, obviously, but still pretty long. And it is well, it is not something uniform for, well, the whole world. So this periodization that we have, that for us Europeans is common, like Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, that is not something that can be placed on archaeology and art of other parts of the world. This is the thing that started to be clear mostly, well, in the 20th century, like, obviously, because those periodizations were proposed by Western Europeans, specifically by Scandinavian school. It started with them, and then it was like some French archaeologists. Well, I'm saying archaeologists, but, well, you understand what type of archaeologists back in 19th century. They also added some their thoughts to that, and, well, now we have this periodization, which turned out to be correct, but now we're just, making it a little bit more clear. But obviously, as well, this colonizer's mind, they had this thought that, well, that means that it is like this everywhere, but it's not. It's not like this everywhere. It's not uniform. It did not emerge in the same time. So the earliest example are like can be found on Middle East, and it is believed that through Middle East, actually, with Neolithic revolution, so the tribes started to migrate, well, to the west mostly. Some of them got to the east also, And yeah, and through Balkans, those Middle Eastern tribes, they brought Bronze Age to Europe. So for the Bronze Age in Greece, archaeologists were able to construct a relative chronology based on changes, first of all, in pottery style, and thus dividing Greece into three regions. First one is the mainland Greece, which is called Helladic region. Second one is Aegean islands, which we call Cycladic region, and like, I don't know, well, in English, Cycladic or like Cycladic, because we call it Cycladic. And third one, well, one that we are interested in is Greece, which is called Minoan region. And a little bit also about how to, well, read this periodization, because the periodization, as you can see, is very big. It's kind of strange to, well, it's hard to understand if you are not prepared to that. You know, you will look at this and you will not see anything. It's just some numbers with some Roman some capital letters with some Roman numbers, with then more capital letters, like what is going on? But everything is not so scary and not so difficult. Even though, well, to memorize this chronology, yes, it's hard if you are not, being trained specifically into Greek art. And Greek art is just something that you need to go through to go further in time and to understand more and more of art and how everything was developing. So yeah, it's hard, but I will try to put the dates also on the screen, so you will understand in what period of time we are. If looking at this periodization, so you can see mostly that first letters are E, M, or L. So it means early, middle, late. Nothing scary, nothing hard. This can be followed, as I said, by either Roman numbers or Arabic numbers or some more capital letters. And again, it's not hard to really understand. So for example, the early age, Bronze Age on Crete, if we're talking specifically about Crete today, is labeled as EM. So EM, it's early Minoan period. This period is on itself is divided on three sub-periods using Roman number 1, 2, and 3. Then it is divided more into some other sub-periods and with usage already with another capital letter. So for example, EM 1A or something like that. So it's not very hard, but again, the periodization is vast, it's huge, because we have a lot of artifacts, we have a lot of research done at this point now, plus we are using, such thing as like carbon dating, for example, that gives us, that narrows the age pretty successfully. So now it's even more clear to what period what belongs. So, the periodization is growing. And but overall, I think it was not hard. But we are talking about Crete today specifically. So there is some alternative periodization that can be understood a bit better, because it has names rather than just letters and some numbers. It is divided on 5 periods. Starting with pre-Palatian period, then proto-Palatian period, neo-Palatian period, or the fourth one is final palatial, and the last one, the fifth one, is post-palatial period. So it is in proto-Palatian period that we can see those enormously big palaces being built. However, by 1750 BCE, these palaces were all destroyed, and the main version because of a very powerful earthquake. In the next Neopalatian period, they were rebuilt at a larger scale than before, but unfortunately, then around 1625 BCE, most of the palaces again were destroyed, this time probably due to the eruption of Thera. The only palace that survived was Knossos. I will be talking a little bit about this today. Yeah, it was rebuilt and continued to function until around 1490 BC. So I hope it's, with periodization it's clear and you will not get lost when you will see something like that, when you will read something about Greece and some articles, I don't know, whatever. So it's everything is not so scary as it looks like. Yeah, well, I told you that, and let's move to wall painting specifically. Painting was used in palaces and also in rich villas. Sometimes also it was used to, well, not sometimes, it was also used to decorate the sarcophagi and, well, etc. Unfortunately, not everything was is preserved, like obviously, because it's been like thousands of already of years. But still, at the end of the day, we have enough of great examples to understand like the well, just the overall picture, maybe not the full picture, but overall, like, archaeologists and art historians are like, we're able to reconstruct some of the thing how it looked like, and just overall what all of this was about, basically. But when then well, the art of Crete started to, well, die bit by bit, as we can say, the tradition of Cretan painting did not dissolve without a trace. Throughout Fera and other islands of Cycladic archipelago, the tradition of frescoes painting reached Mycenaean, actually, Greece, and influenced the formation of painting in, well, Mycenae, of Pylos, and also Theris. The paintings that decorated the Cretan palaces were done on plaster, obviously. Back in early Minoan period, the walls of the houses were covered with plaster and colored with pigments of natural origin, and in these early periods it was mostly with red colors, like red ochre, which is also well, pretty logical, because this is well, what they had access to mostly. So obviously they were using what they had, what, well, neutral materials they had around them. In the period of old palaces, we can talk about the emergence of ornamental friezes and plot compositions during, so this is proto-Palatian, I mean, during the new palaces or Neo-Palatian period, most of the walls in palaces and rich houses were plastered and painted. In a late period, also those ornamental friezes lost their certain independence and gave way to a huge and those very long plot compositions, and I will show you like one of them in Knossos, for example. In addition, there was a practice of painting the floor also. So we know, for example, that in Festus, this is another palace that is not so preserved as Knossos, but still also one of the most important, or one of the most well-known. So the floor was decorated with geometric ornament, and in the Villa Agetriade and Palace Knossos, it was decorated with sea scenes. About some technicalities, how it was done. The painting of the fresco started with the preparation of the wall. It was covered with 2 layers of plaster. First layer was lime with, well, some additions. To be honest, I don't think that I saw what type of additions, but I think it will not say anything to us. It's not so important. The second layer was the layer of gypsum. After drying, the surface was carefully leveled. Next, a sketch was made with ochre, and then, like master or masters, they were figuring out on, well, what part of composition they will be working during the day. So this part of the wall was then layered with a raw plaster on which the main contour of the drawing was scratched, and, well, they started to work. That's technique. It's called true fresco in English, I found, like that, and it is a, well, very good manner of work. It's a very durable technique, because basically when this plaster was drying, those pigments, they were like literally being like trapped into the plaster rather than just being on the wall, that you could literally just wash it away very easily, but it was already in the lime itself, getting into this lime, and thus, as I said, it's a very durable technique. And well, as we can see, we still have these frescoes, and even, you know, when the plaster would fall off, well, due to time or some of the disasters, it would still fall in in pieces, and on these pieces, those type of this like part of composition, the painting will still be on those little pieces. So some of the compositions now, for example, they're being restored, and they're being literally restored like a little mosaic or something, because, you know, the plaster itself fell off the wall. But well, archaeologists and restorers, my god, renovators, how do you call them correctly in English, they were able to put it back together. Often also the walls were additionally decorated with stucco relief, which was also then painted. And the sizes of this composition, the size of these figures on the frescoes could vary greatly, from human size or even smaller, or even bigger, to smaller pieces, like you know, just like few centimeters. And those type of compositions are called miniature frescoes. The art of Crete almost always depicted, you know, a subjective concept of the world. That is, the masters were constantly deforming it. Animals and plants depicted on frescoes and vases quite often do not have actually any prototypes in well, real flora or fauna. Some flowers and leaves belonging to different you know, plants are combined on a stem, forming specimens that have never existed in nature. The same thing happened with birds also. Many anatomical inaccuracies can be found in the depiction of people and animals. This visual fixation of various objects took place on an well, as researchers are saying, on this intuitive subconscious level. About the figures also itself, they were depicted, I mean, human figures, they were depicted according to the traditional scheme of the ancient East, and it just all believed that ancient Egypt had a lot of influence on Minoan art specifically. But what is this ancient East tradition? It is when the body is in my god, 3/4, and the face and legs in profile. However, such an image did not completely satisfy the Cretan artists, so they began to depict the chest in profile also, but at the same time turn the shoulder forward. So this is based on the optional observation that when a figure is turned in profile, its shoulder is closer to the viewer than its chest. The figures then were outlined with the dark contour and then painted with primary colors, which was also pretty typical for ancient tradition, ancient Egyptian specifically also tradition, like as the most well known for not specialist, as we can say. So usually also female figures were done in lighter colors, male in darker color. However, compared to Egyptian tradition, this Cretan tradition was not so strong in, you know, depicting gender by this type of color, by sizes also. And in general, we can say that female images dominated the art of Crete. The background also are like interesting. So the backgrounds on the murals usually conventionally shows the area where this or that action is unfolding. So they were drawing the foreground line first, and the backgrounds were placed in like this registers about this foreground. So again, same thing, if you're familiar with Egyptian, most definitely you're familiar with Egyptian art, you can see that this is going on like that. So it's well, they didn't figure out the perspective back then, so they tried to show the depths, and this is how they were showing that. I mean, Mesopotamian art also is similar like this, like Middle Eastern, like, you know, ancient Middle Eastern art. It's also like that, you can see it like that. So basically, if several rows of figures are depicted, then those characters who occupy the background are shown above those who stand in the foreground and not behind them. Now I want to talk specifically about, well, some of the examples where, well, mostly about the Palace of Knossos. Like, we cannot talk about art of Crete without mentioning Knossos. Basically, this is like, I don't know, the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. We cannot talk about Egyptian art without talking on an architecture without mentioning them. So for Crete is like that. Just overall, the Palace of Knossos is believed to be the one from the myth of legendary king of Crete, Minos, who built this labyrinth to imprison Minotaur, because this is the largest palace on the island. The size of the whole palace is somewhere like I think it's like either around or a little bit more than 1 hectare, which is basically 10k square meters, or if I am correct, 2.5 acres. And that is just the palace. So it was found, it was uncovered by Arthur Evans, and we will not stop a lot on him because Arthur Evans is, like Henry Schliemann with Troy. Arthur Evans also is not very loved now, especially by art historians and especially by archaeologists, because it is believed that his reconstructions, of the palace were not correct, and while renovating this palace and reconstructing it, God knows how many things were actually lost. So he made more damage than good to this place. As I said, the same with Schliemann was in the Asia Minor, when he indeed found out Troy, and indeed it turned out that it was not just something that Homer wrote about and that it was his fantasy. And so Troy is a place that existed back in time, and there were actually 9 Troys, because like for 9 times this poor city was destroyed, was burned. When we are looking at the stratigraphy of archaeology, like archaeological stratigraphy, we can see the 9 layers of, it was burned down, then rebuilt, then again burned down, again rebuilt, then it was just left, like people left, so there's just garbage there, then again it was rebuilt and stuff like that. But while excavating all of that, Schliemann destroyed some of the layers, and Evans is the same. He's not very loved by our communities, but it's not about this. So just overall, as you can see by the plan, the palace was built around a pretty big courtyard that was 25 meters on 50 meters, and the surrounding structures had, in some places had few levels. So I will not stop on architecture. I think that it will be more logical for me to make a video on architecture of Crete of this period of time, because again, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of what we can talk about there. So today we're going to be talking primarily about art there, but as you can see by the plan, enormously big. It is had this courtyard. It is in certain parts it had different levelage, so it was some of the parts were just like 1 story, then like 2 stories, then we could see some panduses, we can see some like stairs going on somewhere, and at some places archaeologists believe that the palace could have been actually 4 levels high, so 4 stories high. So that's like an enormous structure, and the fact that already people had such knowledge and skills to do this back in time, it's impressive. But about frescoes, so it's a very colorful palace, as you will see, and the main color of the frescoes in Knossos are white, black, red, obviously, with addition of some blue, of greens, yellows, some browns, and yes, mostly this color. So this primary colors. A number of researchers point to the sacredness of the colors, especially white and black, and red as an intermediate in between those black and white. The colors, these colors, they represent birth, they represent death, and also rebirth. One of the earliest known and found frescoes of the Knossos Palace is now it is called the Blue Monkey fresco, But when Evans found it first, well, back in like at the beginning of 20th century, he called he named it Saffron Gatherer. This fresco is dated to the second stage of the Middle Minoan period, so MM period. On the fragments we can see well, it is either saffron or some crocuses. Now I understand that mostly researchers are agreeing that those are crocuses, but well, it's either this or that, because if you will Google it, the saffron and crocus. If you are not a botanical person or something, like I am, for example, I googled it because I was like, you know, are those this similar that you can like mix them? Turned out, yeah, they are so similar that you can mix them. I mean, when you start to look a bit closer, yeah, you can see some difference in colors also, even though both of them are violet, but still you can see some differences. But if you will like look at this just straight away, it would be like, you know, this is the same plant. So yeah, so this is no surprise that it is mixed like that. So as I said, on the fragment we can see those flowers and some blue figure. So at first Evans said that it's Evans thought that this blue color was used to indicate this character's youth. Turned out, I don't know when, but turned out that that is a very common, well, character on frescoes for Egyptians. So they were actually showing tame monkeys like this in blue color. And we know that Minoan art was influenced by ancient Egypt art, so it is now believed that this iconography, that they done on this fresco, was borrowed from the Egyptians. Therefore, this fresco is now being reconstructed as a monkey in an apron and with a bracelet on its arms. On its arm. Next, chronologically, are the frescoes with dolphins, the fragment with the image of ladies in blue, and these so-called miniature frescoes. They date back to stage 3 B of the Minoan, of the Middle Minoan period. This is accordingly to a researcher Pendlebury, and according to other researcher Cameron, he dates it to the stage 1-8 of the late Minoan period. The frescoes with dolphins are a part of wall decoration of the Megaron, and dolphins overall, they were a symbol of the liberation of the soul from, well, the earthly body. And the composition is filled with space. It is not overloaded with details. This space is like a frame without beginning and end, basically depicting the, we can say, the this infinity of the world, of the nature, of I don't know what, it's like constant movement also, and well, etc. So it's so researchers are seeing well, such symbolism in that. Ladies in Blue is a small fragment. Well, the plot unfortunately now cannot be restored. It is located in the Great Eastern Hall. Ladies are presented in elegant poses. They are marked by light and smooth lines. Formal and elaborate hairstyles, perhaps it's some kind of like ritual costumes, indicate the importance of the actions in which they are involved. In the Great Hall of the residence, we can see the fragments of a spiral frieze and also the subject of my God, Mycenaean, how I called it correctly, Mycenaean, whatever. Shields in the shape of well, this like 8 figure that are included in the ribbon ornament. They have been preserved also. Colored spots, they convey the color of the skins of the animals in which the shields were covered by them. The most famous fresco of this time is an image of acrobats jumping over a bull, and it was found in a room of the eastern wing called, again, as I said, by Evans' school room. And this plot is called Games with a Bull. So it is believed that this room had some kind of like cult significance, Cameron reconstructs 5 panels that decorate the wall, but probably there were more compositions. Well, unfortunately, they cannot be restored at this point. And the compositions differ in color of the background, in the poses of bulls and acrobats. So one of the backgrounds is in blue, the other is in yellow, and each scene along the perimeter is framed by an ornamental frame. And this is well, important to point out, because that is well, such framing is not something that was characteristic for Minoan art. So this is a unique stuff. And as far, well, when I started to study in like what 2018 on art history, well, back then it's considered that this is a unique and only example like this in Minoan art. So maybe they found something new at this point, or I don't know, but my knowledge, this is the only case of using this technique in Minoan art. Smooth line gives each character their own, you know, characteristic, distinctive qualities. So master, again, most definitely masters. We're trying to show the flexibility of human figures, the power also of a bull body especially. The bull is depicted and shown much larger than the acrobats jumping over it. And I mean, it's natural obviously, but perhaps the size of the bull is also exaggerated to present it as the main character of the scene, while the acrobats are of secondary importance here. Although it is possible the small figures of the jumpers indicate that these are young men and women and not adults. So researcher Damiani, following another researcher Schachерmeier, proposed the following version. So 3 figures, one of which hangs on the bull's horn, another does a somersault on his back, and the third lands. They indicate not only the stages of jumps, but also how this moment unfolded in time. So this researcher Damiani, well, I believe it's she, it's a woman. I think yes, whatever. This researcher believes that dark represents the jumper in the present moment, white represents the past moment of the start of the jump, and the future moment of landing. So here the scenes, they are not, you know, they does not appear as a fixation of reality, but perhaps dedicated to conveying the aura of the action when the jump and the state of its experience becomes the main acting hero, conveyed through the expressiveness of the line and of the color. In these bull games, it was normal that women also took part of that, not just men, since the female goddess was the main opponent of the bull god, who personified her, well, son husband. So the goddess sacrificed him annually so that he, having survived the annual cycle, could be reborn again. The next big fresco is of the Holy Procession. The beginning of this composition and individual fragments in other parts have been preserved. In the procession corridor, there were frescoes on both walls. It was the only large frieze in the palace, and the movement of the figures took place in a direction to the goddess that was depicted at the northern end of the eastern wall. The participants in the procession was, well, mostly men, are grouped mostly in 2 or 3 people, but sometimes we can see some single figures also. The depicted groups, they differed in their decorations and type of clothing. It is still unclear whose hairstyle and clothes are depicted, Minoan or Mycenaean. Perhaps the image of the real procession unfolds in front of us that was passing this corridor and was part of a religious festival, of a solemn meeting of the goddess, or the bringing of gifts to the sanctuary. The composition is quite static, despite, you know, this how many figures are there and the subject overall, which allows us to feel this measured and I don't know, like extended rhythm of the sacral the sacral procession. The type of such composition may have been borrowed from Egypt also, but its embodiment is purely Cretan. Here are shown not ambassadors with some tribute, not servants bringing, you know, gifts for a funeral feast, but religious procession that greets or well, maybe it's in the contrary, that is being greeted by a goddess. The main figure is in the center of the composition, and the participants of the procession approach this figure from two sides. Perhaps there was also a figure of a goddess or priestess on the west wall, where the images are poorly preserved. The goddess holds a sacred object in her hands. Probably she holds labrises, so this is like some kind of axis. Young man standing on the sides of the goddess holds clothes with fringes at the end. In the hand of other characters, some sacred vessels, musical instrument. The background is a stylized image of a mountains with streams running from them. A well-preserved fragment of this composition is the young man with a wreath-on. This this fresco was not found in the corridor of procession itself, but in the hall of the propylaea, but its composition coincides with the figures of the procession fresco. The same cycle, so this is also one of the most, I think, it can be actually the most famous fresco from Knossos Palace. It's called Lily King or King Priest. Originally, Evans reconstructed this image as a figure in a walking apron with an elaborate headdress of feathers and long hair. On the neck of the depicted character is a necklace of golden lily flowers. The right hand is clenched in a ritual gesture with the fist on the chest. In the left, he had some kind of like object similar to the handle of a cane. Palmer, the researcher Palmer, reconstructs a series of fresco fragments to the south of this image at a distance of 7 meters, and therefore it is possible that there were several more figures in front of this image. The relief itself, by the beliefs of researcher Castellan, depicted a young man with a Minoan hairstyle, wearing an apron and a crown with feathers on his head, leading a griffin on a leash, actually. Another researcher that I mentioned already, him Cameron, based on the fact that the body is painted in this light pink color, plus, the chest part is pretty damaged, so we cannot really understand what is going on there. He believes that the figure actually belongs to a woman, that's not a male one, and he names it the Queen of the Labyrinth. Decoration of the throne hall also refers to the time when the procession composition was created. Fragments depicting griffins were found here next to a throne. By the beliefs of Evans, paintings with griffins covered all the walls of the hall. Researcher Palmer believes that there was a landscape image on the eastern wall, and the whole composition is now perceived as a pair of griffins on a red background lying on both sides of the throne. Another well-known fresco is called Parisian Woman, named by Evans. So this is another thing I remember mentioning similar stuff in the video about Tassili Najer that I made. So this is like this prehistoric art, this cave paintings, and we're talking about that there were also this French researchers mostly, and few of them called one of the pictures there as White Lady, because I talked about this in a video, so it does not make any sense that in the what is this, southeast Algeria, there will be some kind of white lady there, but well, here is the same thing, those very interesting names. So yeah, but Parisian Woman is also pretty well-known fresco from this palace, and it depicts a female figure with Mediterranean facial features and bright makeup. This fresco was not completely preserved, and during the excavation they first found garbage in the form of remnants of plaster that had been spilled with paint on it. And as I already said, this is one of the examples that when they were picking up these frescoes and basically putting it together like mosaic. And we will end with two short examples from villas. One of them, one villa that I chose is Agia Triad. So fragments are known with the image of blooming corner of the garden, with the image of stealthy cat, and with the image of part of a female figure in a colorful skirt. The most famous of these fragments is a cat sneaking up on a bird, and we can see this flexible, silent movement is embodied with amazing skills of the master that painted this piece. Despite all of the episodic nature, the thoughtfulness of the composition is stunning, where every details make up this at first glance very spontaneous episode. And another thing that I wanted to show you, it is called House of Lilies. It was a two-story villa with 2 rooms decorated with frescoes with floral motifs. A white frieze is decorated with red and white lilies, images of mint, some papyruses, some iris, and etc. The villa had multi-section doors, a kitchen, a prayer room, and a bathroom, but unfortunately this villa was destroyed by fire in the late Minoan period, so we know it. I think it will be everything for today. So just this like brief like overall image of what was going on Crete. I think it would be logical also for me to make a video about, well, a bit later, about architecture. Plus we haven't talked about architecture in a while, because there is, as I said, there's a lot to talk about there. And well, I hope it was interesting for you. I hope you found out something new for yourself. And I mean, if you are like, Crete is a very popular vacation destination, and I suppose it never was there, to be honest. Well, we planned to go there, but then pandemic started and now we have a war. Yeah, I wanted to say, oh my god, we have this very interesting saying, proverb in Ukraine, that is, I don't even know how to translate it directly for you to understand. So it sounds like як не срачка, так болячка, which means that if there's not something, if you're not like shitting yourself constantly, then you're being ill constantly. So I mean, it doesn't probably make any sense for you, like English speakers or non-English speakers overall, but this is this thing that like I am using it constantly, that if something is happening, it's like the point is that if something is happening, well, if something does go accordingly to the plan, and it gets worse even sometimes, and you're just being like, oh, like, та що ж таке, як не срачка, так болячка. So this is like the same thing, it's like not pandemic, then a war, like what the fuck, like can we live normally for like, I don't know, for at least 1 century in this world? Well, I'm smiling about this, but this is just the only way how you can like cope with that, yeah. But what I wanted to say, so maybe, well, it will be summer season, or maybe some of you can have this possibility to do it now, visit those places. I do understand that beaches and everything like that, with beautiful water and just laying with cocktails, whatever, but really take your time and visit, because I mean, Crete is not a big place, it's not like a super big island, and I think you can actually do it within like few days, well, maybe not a few days, because I don't think that you'll be able to see everything just in 1 day in Knossos. There's other palaces also, like really like take your time, and I think that in real life I think that it looks even more impressive and impactful on your mind than it is on the picture. Just some idea for you, so maybe you will choose the place where to go for a vacation, go to Crete, and educate yourself. You can combine the education and you can combine the vacation. So yeah, so like another like little destination for you there. But well, I hope it was still interesting. Like I hope you picked up just the overall idea, because again, I tried to narrow it down as possible, because this is a very huge topic. Well, as everything in Greece, actually, every single topic in Greek art is an enormously big topic, so it's pretty hard sometimes to narrow it down just for some like overall the tip of the iceberg knowledge. So I hope I was able to do that, and I hope that you saw some of the examples and you saw some of the things, and now you have more understanding what is going on there, how it looked like, and yeah, so as I said, hope it was interesting for you, hope you find out something new for yourself, because as I'm always mentioning, this is the most important for me. And yeah, the next video I hope will be about another national costume, an enormously beautiful national costume. So I will spoil it like that a bit. And yeah, so stay safe, stay healthy. We'll wish you all the best, basically. And again, I will remind that about literature. So feel free to write me. I am more than open to share with you the literature. I like to do that. I like to help in that way. So yeah, and well, hope to see you in the next videos. Bye bye.